Well, I don't know what the collective noun for a group of Excelsior class starships is, but I'm now in need of one because I've just sort of made a group of Excelsior class starships. I'm having a bit of a sort out, and I have sort of half had this idea in my head for a little while to actually look across the Excelsior class as it developed over time using the Diamond Select models that I have in my possession. One of these models is actually something that I really sort of swore to myself I would never pick up, but if you recall, a little while ago now, I went to Redditch and I picked up quite a big collection of Diamond Select ships, and the battle damaged Enterprise B came in that collection. And to be honest, I think it's really weak compared to something like the sort of self-destructing Enterprise from Wrath of Khan, from Search for Spock even. You know, they went to town on that one basically. This one's got a little bit of a sort of light dusting of charcoal on it. And what they also haven't done with it is they haven't taken a chunk out of the hole next to the navigational deflector dish, which I think is a missed opportunity, because if they'd done that, then I would have kind of bought into the idea that it's not battle damage, it's just damaged because it just got hit by an energy ribbon in space. I'm just saying. Anyway, what I did find interesting when I was looking across at these was I was quite prepared to say in a sort of offhand fashion that actually all that Diamond Select had done was rebadge them, because the boxes for the NX and the NCC-2000 are both labelled NCC-2000. Literally all they've done on the box for the NX is put NX on a sticker on the front of the box. But in fairness, the sound chips are different in all of them. So they've all got their own sound effects from the relevant film that the ship first appeared in. So I've got to give them points for that, because they could have maybe omitted, speech effects altogether, or whatever, but they didn't. But not only did they do that, they also made little tweaks to the designs of the ships that I don't think I've ever really particularly noticed as being differences between the different Excelsior classes. Now, obviously, we're getting deep into, the sort of the technical geekery here in terms of what's what. And to be honest, I don't know why a lot of them were done, but working hypothesis is this. The NX here was supposed to be an experimental ship, hence the NX designation, to test transwarp drive. Okay, so it had different nacelles to the standard Constitution class Enterprise, and obviously much bigger ship than the Enterprise as well. But the actual warp drive system was supposed to be radically better and faster. It didn't work because Scotty killed it in 2 seconds flat, so it couldn't pursue the Enterprise. So when the Excelsior went into standard service as the NCC-2000 with Sulu captaining, it looks like they wound back some of the changes that they'd made for the transwarp version. So although the nacelles are the same, there are differences at the back of the ship and differences on the top surface here. So the impulse engines are exactly the same, but even the bridge module is slightly different, and the detailing around here is slightly different. So they clearly did a little bit of tweaking. And I think what I'll do is let me take the Enterprise B out of the equation for a moment, because it's probably easiest just to compare the two Excelsiors alongside each other. So I was all ready to have a go at Diamond for sort of just basically blagging it and, taking the Michael basically and just milking it and making people buy two virtually identical Excelsiors. But when you actually do have a closer look, you can start to see that actually, yeah, all right, technically speaking, they are slightly different ships. So I can just sort this out. Okay, so it's a bit tricky to get them both in focus here, but the 2000 here, so as I say, this bridge module is a little bit different. It's got two of these, I think these were these impulse control crystals, I want to say they are. So they're slightly different there, because here they just had a single central one on the NX, so that's a change. These two little fins are present in both, but there's more detailing here again, so something about this area has definitely changed. This area here is very different, and in fact this actually lights up, whereas the nacelles didn't. That's kind of what drew my attention to it, and I realized that on the NX that's a totally different sort of thing, whatever that is, than it is on the NCC version of it. So that was of interest as a change as well. As I say, I think that the nacelles and the pylons are the same. So I don't think they've tweaked anything there, and I don't think I'd obviously noticed anything on the underside that was radically different. This is probably going to start making a noise now. Wait for it. But I don't think anything underneath was radically different. Just having a quick look across them both. No, I don't think they are different. I think it's identical underneath, which is fair enough, because you kind of expect them not to bother with anything underneath really. But what they didn't do was make any mistakes in terms of the registries and so on, because the registry is correct on the nacelles there, even though it's tiny, and it is correct on the nacelles here as well. I don't know why that is lit up. I must have slightly depressed it, I think. There we go. So, if you wanted a couple of slightly different Excelsior vessels, or you just want Excelsior vessels, either of those are perfectly fine as Excelsior class vessels. So, they work absolutely fine. And I do like the Excelsior. Obviously, my domain, technically speaking, isn't named after this ship. But even as far back as Ertl making these in die-cast, I had Excelsior ships. It's more framed after the Stan Lee's Excelsior expression, but anyway. So let's have a quick listen to this, because I've never actually shown you the NX-2000 before. I was quite surprised when I realised I'd picked it up in that job lot from Redditch. I was very surprised, because it hadn't really dawned on me that they'd done the NX as a separate ship. Because it is so similar to the NCC, I kind of wondered why they would have bothered. But if you listen, you'll find that obviously it's got very different sound clips.
Level, please. Transporter room. Thank you. Up your shaft.
Now, I don't know if that's mega loud for you, but it sounds mega loud for me. I don't know what they did with the volume control on this one, but it's impressive.
Yellow alert. Captain to the bridge. Bridge, this is the captain. How can you have a yellow alert in space dock? Incredible machine.
Just random engine noise.
Stand by, tractor beam.
I mean, you've got to bear in mind as well, in Search for Spock, Excelsior is only actually on screen for about 5 minutes. This is probably the totality of all the sounds that are associated with Excelsior at that point.
Prepare for warp speed. Stand by, transwarp drive. Execute.
That's very clever. I'm just laughing because they made the lights flash as the transwarp engine was breaking down. Then fair dues to them. That's clever. Well done, Diamond. That was a lovely touch. And in fact, these nacelles do not light up, but they do on this version. I wonder if that's what they did here. That they decided not to light the nacelles up because it was broken and it wasn't going to go to warp. So I wonder if that was what if that's actually on purpose.
Looking forward to breaking some of Enterprise's speed records tomorrow. Level, please. Transporter room. Thank you.
And Scotty didn't have a lot of time for the NX, but so let's have a listen to the standard Excelsior sound effects now, and you'll see they are also completely different.
Nice to see you in action one more time, Captain Kirk.
So we immediately jump from film 3 to film 6. This is the undiscovered country Excelsior that gets in a ruckus with the Klingons with the Enterprise. And you can see there, these little lights were lighting up, but so were the nacelles. And they both do navigational deflector lights and impulse engine lights as well.
Captain's log, USS Excelsior. Hikaru Sulu commanding.
So of course we have Sulu in command here. Not Harriman. No, not Harriman.
On screen. Magnify. Shields. Shields.
And again, flashing light effects for when they're getting hit by the energy wave from Praxis.
Damage report. Don't tell me that was any meteor shower.
It's a lot of sound clips.
Dome engage.
So you get the idea. You know, they're from. Now, interesting. I'm just wondering what years these are from. So this is. So that's 2010. I think that's 2010. So I think the NX came out in 2010. And the Excelsior 2000, NCC-2000 came out in 2017. So they obviously did this mold quite a long. I mean, if I've got that right, I'm just having a closer look, because that does seem like quite a big. Oh no, actually this might be 2015 actually, something like that. Yeah, that might make more sense actually. So they're, in terms of the quality of the sound chip and so on, that actually makes a little bit more sense. I think that they'd be a little bit closer together time-wise. So of course, then we jump to the Enterprise B here. Now, going through all the sounds and lights for the other ships, it would be remiss of me not to do it for this one as well. So here we go.
Picking up a distress call, Captain. Well then, I guess it's up to us. Risk is part of the game. You want to sit in that chair. Helm, lay in an intercept course and engage at maximum warp.
You'll notice here that the nacelles are lighting up all the way as well, unlike the NX.
I'll go. You have the bridge. Your place is on the bridge of your ship. I'll take care of it. Activate main deflector. You did it, Kirk! I'm Captain John Harriman. It wouldn't be the Enterprise without a Sulu at the helm.
Indeed. And this came out in, because I forgot to check it before. Now this might be relatively late, although possibly not. Possibly 2015 again, actually. So I wonder if the NCC-2000 was actually a bit of an afterthought. But I guess maybe the NX came out first, and then they actually did the 2000 after Undiscovered Country, and sort of this one not long after that, possibly. because they would all have been out, all the films would have been out well in time for them to do these, of course. So no great shakes there really, but yeah, interesting. Let's compare this one with the Excelsior, because it is actually derived from the Excelsior. So what I'm expecting to see here is fewer differences. And I can immediately see, which is a little bit harder for you because I've cranked this up, but if I never ever do this with the stands, by the way, it's not a good idea, but anyway. Okay, so what we have here in sort of canonical terms anyway is the Enterprise B, which is a refit Excelsior, and these ships are basically should be more or less identical, apart from the obvious shifts that they did, because they used the same studio model for the Enterprise B as they used for the Excelsior, because they needed a ship for the Enterprise B. They needed to do it fairly rapidly, but they also needed to do something that people would kind of recognize and see was a sort of, you know, a progression from the Enterprise A, but not massively, because it was still in that time period. So it was quite a clever idea to take the space frame of the Excelsior and upgrade it, and then use that for the Enterprise B. So we've still got these twin impulse crystals there. The bridge looks pretty much the same. Doesn't have the fins here. It's just got a sort of smooth surface there. It's got these great big bolt-on impulse engines either side of the traditional impulse engines there. The nacelles have had a little bit of, they've had some go faster stripes added to them, so they've got some fins on the top there, some fins at the front there for no apparent reason, because they're in space. You don't need fins in space. And they've sort of changed the caps on the nacelles as well, I think slightly. Other than that, and other than obviously this big protrusion on the front here next to the navigational deflectors, which is the most obvious difference really, when you're just sort of looking at them. Those are, I think, the main differences between the two, but they are otherwise absolutely identical to one another. And as I was saying, with this is ostensibly the battle damage version of it. I mean, this is why I would never have set out to buy this one as a thing for my collection, particularly because it's just this really sort of light dusting of a little bit of sort of, I mean, I don't think it even got damage from the energy ribbon on the top of the saucer section. That's just because it's visible in the box. So you can see in that box that it is sort of, look, I've been battle damaged, honestly. But there's no, they're giving it a bit of carbon scoring there on the bottom, but they haven't taken anything out of the hull. If they were really going to do it properly, they would have actually taken something out there, not just coloured it. So that, for me, is perhaps the biggest annoyance, because obviously they didn't want to have to change the mold fundamentally from the unbattle damaged version of it, which they also release, which I also have elsewhere, but I thought 3 Excelsiors was probably enough. So it's very, very broadly similar to the Excelsior that you would expect to see. It's just a little bit bruised looking, and it's just had a few tweaks, but that was what they had to do in terms, to sort of produce a model at speed. And obviously this would have had advantages as well, because it was already designed to be shot on film rather than it being a sort of a TV series model. But the Excelsior went on to be reused a lot. And an interesting fact, actually, before I forget, that I picked up from someone else's video that I had a quick look at. This version of yeah, and this relates to another thing I'll be looking at maybe next week. This version of the Excelsior was also seen in Deep Space Nine when they showed us the Lakota going up against the Defiant, because the Lakota was actually this refit Excelsior, and I did not notice that because its overall silhouette was effectively the same. That I didn't actually notice that they'd quietly used that as almost like a standard Excelsior. I mean, they described the Lakota as having been upgraded in certain ways, so that it was tougher than the average Excelsior and more powerful. But what I hadn't realised was they'd actually used the whole version of the Enterprise B. Now, I mentioned that, and the reason that I mentioned that in passing is because when Playmates came to do their version of the Excelsior, they did it wrong, basically, to my mind. But this video, I think, was trying to justify the fact that they'd done it on the basis that we saw that some Excelsiors did get this refit. So this is still an Excelsior, even though it's got the bolt-ons. And I'm thinking, yeah, but it doesn't really work in this context because you've placed it in a time frame that is clearly the NCC-2000 time frame, not, you know, like what, a couple of decades later, perhaps, when the refit Enterprise would have, well, not the refit Enterprise, but the Enterprise B would have come out, because this is clearly, you know, a long time after the original Excelsior came out, and it clearly wasn't massively widely adopted, because in the next generation we still see standard factory settings Excelsiors being used to shuttle dignitaries around the place. So they become this sort of, you know, sort of escorty sort of vessel role that they fill, but there are still lots of them about, and we see lots of them being thrown into battle in the Dominion War. But what's really interesting now is I might go back and watch some Dominion War battle sequences and see whether or not they use stock Excelsiors or whether they did actually use this Enterprise B Excelsior, because I can't immediately think of another time apart from that Lakota episode where they use this design again. And this is probably, you know, the shortest lived Enterprise on screen ever, because we literally only see it in Generations for those few moments, and then it's gone again. You know, we probably saw the Enterprise C in yesterday's Enterprise for longer, because it was at least in the whole episode. So there was that for the Enterprise C, bless it. But yeah, so been meaning to do that for a while, and as I say, I'm having to tidy up, so I thought that was a good time to do it. I've now got to remove about sort of 9 AAA batteries out of all of these, because if you remember, this is the one where the batteries are on a little sort of tray just underneath the secondary hole here, so they sort of go in behind the navigational deflector dish. Because it's a funny ship like that. It's so thin, so long and thin, but of course it was ideal for cinema screens, because when you look like that, when you're sort of on your sort of longitudinal axis, you can fill an entire cinema screen quite happily. Whereas I suspect that the Constitution class was a little bit trickier to film in that sense, but I still like it as a ship. Yeah, I think it has to grow on you a little bit, because I do think it looks a little bit ungainly at times because it is so long. When you're used to the sort of the stubbiness of the Constitution class, you don't really expect to see something that's this elongated. But like I say, that was probably a decision as much as anything else to distinguish it from the Enterprise, and to also perhaps make it, you know, better to film as a movie ship rather than a TV ship. That's just my hypothesis, but feel free to come at me in the comments if that is nonsense. I would expect no less. So yeah, so that's it. That was a quick run through the sort of the family of Diamond Select Excelsior class ships. I mean, it's probably got a distinction in that it's probably had the most versions of it done between Diamond Select and Playmates of any other ship, because the Enterprise refits are so distinct. You can't really do a lot more with them, although of course you do get the 1701 refit and the A, so you do get quite a few versions of that. But equally, we see a lot of Excelsiors as well, so that's just the way of it. That was it for this one. Cheers for now.